and right into the stretch. Looking back and throws up the middle. Rose is on his way around. Picked up by Otis.
Here comes the ready or not. Here comes the boys from the south. Here comes the ready or not. How you like me now? I say, here comes the boom, ready or not. Here comes the boys from the south. Boom, here comes the boom, ready or not. How you like me now?
You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati.
You are watching live the best damn offseason Cincinnati sports podcast this side of the Bengal barn. My name is Santori Miles, and we got back from retirement just for a day. Big Savage Greg. How we doing? How we doing?
Buddy, all I can tell you is, thank God the snow has ended for now. That's all I care about.
Well, it's snowing right now up here.
Oh, well, not as bad.
Not as bad. But first and foremost, we got to thank the people that help keep the show running. Number one, our longtime first standing sponsor. Imagine, if you will, your favorite quarterback has just led the league in passing. He's led the league in touchdowns. Your favorite receiver has led the league in receptions, yards, touchdowns, and you still miss the playoffs. It's a sad time. So what do you do to drown your sorrows? Brimming Horn Meadery. Get you some mead. It's wine. It's alcohol. It's beer. I don't know what it is. It's Viking shit. It's some of the best stuff you can get. Use our code HOODAY9 to get 15% off 2 bottles or more. Basically helps cover shipping. It's great stuff. Now, Greg's, you used to do this read for us all the time. Do you still have it in you?
Which one? Oh, God, I have to look up in my notes.
You don't have to look it up. Go off the cuff. Go off the cuff.
What? Okay. Are you looking for great food? Great everything? Well, they cut down the Midwest Best Barbecue on Buff Ward's Corner. They got wings. They got pork. They got mac and cheese. They got pork rinds. They got salads. They got everything awesome there. Shout out to Tim and Nicole.
That's my trash you done made, so you bagged him. I'm a savage. Classy, bougie, ratchet. Sassy, moody, nasty.
Shout
And then
out.
last but not least, definitely not least, out of Lebanon, Ohio, near and dear to our heart, Steve Huff's Script Coffee. Go get you some. It's damn good coffee, and I'm not a coffee drinker, but I do have 3 bags of it by my coffee grinder right now. All in-house, all local, does a darn good job. And they got pickleball. Maybe don't do the pickleball right now, but go to Script Coffee. Go get you some. On the agenda today, Greg, I know you wanted to talk about our defensive coordinator search.
I mean, it's kind of, we interviewed 2 guys last week, but now it's like, I need Pork Chop, who's the best at doing the crickets right now. It's all crickets all of a sudden, right?
Right. And I was talking to Dad about this earlier today. And my thought process is it's probably quiet right now because there's still teams trying to figure out their head coaching situations. If you're a defensive coordinator, right, let's say you're one of the big names, everybody's reaching out to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it behoove you to wait until the head coaching spots are filled to see if anybody else wants to interview you before you jump on and take another job somewhere?
Yeah, exactly. Because like some people were saying, oh, they need to fill this immediately. Well, but I want to be like, okay, that's fine. I get that because you want to get everything rolling, but you also want to take your time because what if there's someone out there? What if you already hired someone and there's someone out there? You're like, wow, this guy was going to be my top choice, but I already hired somebody.
Well, I mean, that can happen. What if, one of these head coaches comes in and then cleans house, someone else becomes available, something happens in the college world? The issue is there's still football being played, and staffs are still very volatile at the moment. Could they go out and just sign somebody right now? Sure. To my knowledge, and maybe I'm way wrong, I haven't been as diligent as I normally am. I don't think a single defensive coordinator has been named yet for any of the openings.
Because I just said that, thought that to myself. I don't think anybody's been hired yet, period, on anything. Yeah. Well, Browns hired their offensive coordinator, but they promoted the guy.
And that's about it. It's been very, very far and few between. I mean, the guy that everybody's coveted, Robert Saleh, has not been named anything yet.
Well, the Jaguars, I just read, are very heavily considering making him a new head coach. And, Robert Saleh, let's just – I mean, would he be a right fit for us? I mean, we know his resume, but would he be the right fit also is my question.
Well, unfortunately, we'll never know that because we don't know what Zach is wanting to run.
Right.
At the end of the day, Zach has an idea for what he wants his team to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't mesh with Robert Saleh, the other thing is if you're going to bring in somebody who's going to run a defense like that, they are going to want their defense immediately, right?
Right.
And they have to come in and overhaul a roster. Zach Taylor might want certain guys here and have to find a coordinator fit personnel. I've never agreed with that approach. I've always thought that you should get personnel to fit your coaching style, which in a way is still what Zach is trying to do. He has personnel he likes. They have guys that they've heavily invested in, and they're in win now mode. So they're going to have to try and find a plug and play that not only works now, but is able to slowly mold what they want over the next 5-6 years of their tenure.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? I had a conversation with a friend of mine who knew about this. So if you remember, I'm sure you remember this. Jack Del Rio came in an interview when Zach first came here. And I'm like, great, that's a great fit for us. He gives you a veteran presence to help out. But unfortunately, he wanted to run the same defense Zimmer did. But Zach Taylor's like, look, I want to run like a sub-package type of defense. It just wasn't a fit for him and all that with Jack Del Rio. I was upset because I wanted him as our DC at the time. But, Zach's like, no, that's not what I want. I want my own – I want the defense that I envision.
Yep. So when looking for the coordinator to see what the Bengals might get, just because they don't hire a name
Mm-hmm.
don't get upset. It might be something that fits what they want to do. And they've had moderate success on defense over the last 5-6 years. It's just going to depend what that continues to look like. I don't know what Jim Leonard is going to run. I don't know what Al Golden is going to want to run. I don't know what Covington or Graham or Eberflus are going to want to run. Those are all names being considered. So far, they've all been linked. But there's going to be so many options. And we kind of talked about this on the show last time. Anything that fits the system, right? That's going to be maybe 20 to 30% of all coaches out there. Now you want to look for, are they experienced? Are they leaders? And you start whittling it down. But when you consider everybody in the NFL, everybody in college, everybody in, it wouldn't surprise me if some NFL teams go after people in the XFL or the UFL because they have NFL ties. It's a who you know business, not a what you know.
Right.
It could be 100 different people, and we've only scratched the surface with 5 or 6 different options. There's a good to fair chance that they're going to pick somebody that maybe you've heard their name in passing, and maybe even if you've heard their name, you don't know anything about them. Like I know when Eberflus was first brought up, the average person was like, God, the Bears suck. And I'm like, yeah, but if you look at his tenure at defensive coordinator, he tore it up. He did really good with the Bears as defensive coordinator. He did really good with the Colts as defensive coordinator. And then, everybody was like, oh, I don't know who Patrick Graham is. Okay. Patrick Graham was part of Bill Belichick's Patriots linebackers core. He was their linebackers coach. They did pretty good during those runs, right? They always had a stingy defense. Okay. The Raiders had some hit or miss defenses when he was there, but for the most part, they had competitive defenses.
Yeah, the argument I'm going to make, going back to the Patriots, I mean, yeah, it's all fine, but you look at the Patriots, Bill Belichick coaching tree does not have a good track record.
It does not. That's something.
Patricia, Josh McDaniels, Romeo Crennel. Who was the one that looked like Rodney Dangerfield way back? What was his name? He coached at Notre Dame. Oh, what was his name?
Charlie Weiss.
What? Charlie Weiss.
Oh my God. Charlie Dangerfield. Jesus, Rodney Dangerfield. No, that's funny. But yeah, that's something to consider too. The other thing to consider when you're looking at some of these coordinators is how are they supplemented by their front office? Because if I heard somebody say, oh, he did okay, but that was this team and their front office doesn't really back him. Okay.
Right.
Well, the rumor on the street is it didn't work for Lou because the front office didn't back him. So that's keep that into consideration when we're looking at coaches. We don't have a front office that retains talent. We have a front office that struggles to get talent.
And speaking of Lou, man, he's getting interviews. The Bears, the Falcons. Falcons make the most sense, I guess, because of Jesse Bates and all that and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see.
It was never a question of if Lou was the right coordinator or not. He's a fantastic coach. The issue is he wasn't supplemented by his front office properly. And, a lot of coordinators really only last 5 or 6 years with their team. Mm-hmm. Truly. Messages run thin quick. And, once it starts to go or once you lose a locker room, and I'm not saying Lou lost a locker room, but once things start to get a little bit of stale, there are really good coaches every year who get canned because things need shaken up. And it's not necessarily the coach's fault. I wish Lou the best. He was fantastic when he was here. But I think everybody would also agree that there was enough talent on that defense that it should have been a lot better than what it was. It was a little of both. So,
yeah. Well, I want to go back. So the guys that we've been interviewing, have you noticed they're defensive back coaches? Eberflus is known for developing defensive backs.
Mm-hmm.
I forget. I forget somebody else that we're interested in is also defensive backs.
Sure.
My take on what's that?
I said sure. I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah. The thing of it is, though, don't we need to be more of because the whole problem we had with Lou was we would run these prevent defenses. I just don't want to go back to relying on the defensive backs. Vulture even said at one point, the reason why our defensive backfield was so good because the defensive line kept pressuring the quarterback. I mean, you could have the best defensive backs in the league, Santori. I mean, look at the Broncos, man. I mean, but but when you have enough time to throw the ball and all that, I don't care how good of a defensive back you are, somebody's going to get open eventually. Yeah?
So your defensive backs are only as good as your pass rush.
Right.
And I've always said that. It was the case when I coached high school football. Mm-hmm. We had ridiculously talented athletes when I was coaching high school football. I've got, a kid that just transferred to Notre Dame who was starting at Alabama, who was one of our DBs. I've got a kid who's currently playing at Mississippi State who is a DB. I've got a couple kids at Ohio University. Another kid went to Ohio State. That's a loaded defensive backfield for high school ball. And I've got like 5 kids going D1, especially when it says Ohio State, Alabama, Notre Dame, name it, right? My pass rush was fantastic because probably the best pass rusher we had on those teams is currently playing at Notre Dame as well. And when you're putting constant pressure on people,
right?
You speed up the process, throws go a little bit haywire, things get tipped at the line. You create turnovers and you create havoc with your front line. You don't create turnovers with your DBs. Yeah, jams work well. You want to stay close in coverage. But at the end of the day, corners can only cover for so long. And if a quarterback's sped up, that's going to make them even better at their job. And they're only going to get sped up if you win the battle in the trenches. So
yeah,
I would be focusing on a coach that focuses on D-line, personally.
Yeah, exactly. And Eberflus, is that how you pronounce his name? Because I get criticism.
Eberflus.
Okay. He had Buckner. He still had a good defensive line and all that. And in Indianapolis, they were like 30th in defense, and he came there in 1 year, turned them into the 10th best defense. If he can turn us into a top 15 defense, I'll take that. That's enough to get us where we need to go. Am I right?
I 100%. If they'd have had an average defense this year, they'd still be playing right now.
Right.
So I really, really hope whoever they get has an emphasis on creating chaos in the trenches. Mm-hmm. I don't really care if they're a defensive backs coach by trade or a linebackers coach by trade. I just want someone who understands that the game is won in the trenches.
Yes.
Whether that's stopping the run, creating pass rush pressure, that's where football is won. It is won up front. And every single year over the last 4 years, You can't tell me that if the trenches were better, that the Bengals wouldn't have went on a serious run. In 2021, if the offensive line was better, they would have won the Super Bowl. In 22, if the offensive line was better, they would have at least gone back to the Super Bowl. They got within a play. 23, if the line is better, Joe isn't getting killed, and they go 9-8 without Joe. This year, if the defensive line is better, they're in the playoffs. The game, I don't care how good your quarterback is. That's shown the last 4 years now. We've had a quarterback playing at an MVP level for half a decade and don't have too much to show for it. It's won in the trenches. That's why this coordinator job is so important.
Right.
The offensive line coach position is so important, and the D-line coach that they're going after is so important. This is the most pivotal offseason they've had in a long time, just in terms of coaching personnel.
Well, look at the Rams yesterday. Everybody thought the Rams were done after they lost Aaron Donald. I didn't know anybody, half the players on that Rams defense. That D coordinator was so creative. He got all of his players involved. He kept mixing up players, blitzing. I don't know how much you watched the game you watched yesterday.
I didn't.
Okay, well, no, you have to go back and watch. I mean, they tore Sam Darnold apart yesterday, that young Rams D-line. You know why? Because they drafted DT and DN in the first 2 rounds and all that. Fiskey, I forget who the other one they drafted, but the Rams defense, who I do not know at all, did a hell of a job doing that. I'm like, why can't we have someone like that can be creative?
Sure. And I'll go ahead and say this right now. And this is a little bit off topic, but still kind of off topic regarding T. Higgins. I never want to see my talent leave, ever. I always want to retain every single player I can. I want T. Higgins here. I want him in a Bengals uniform, and I want him to be here for the rest of his career. When he is out there, this offense is borderline unstoppable. Between him, Jamar, and Joe, it's a problem. However, if signing T means that I have to lose stability or the ability to strengthen my trenches, no thank you. I will keep T as long as I can keep my offensive line and defensive line moving in the right direction.
What's the highest you'd be willing to pay T? Like, say T says, I'll take a friendly contract. What is the cap space that would interfere of getting in the trenches or whatever you were just saying?
As long as the cap hit hangs around what the tag was or less, I'm okay with it. I just paid him 21. Okay. If you extend him for 3 years, even if it's on the super high end, which to me, the high end for T is low 30s, right? So let's say it's 31, because I feel like that's a high end for T. Higgins.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If it's 3 years, 31 a year, so 3 years, 93.
Yeah.
Your cap hit is still probably very similar to what it was. Okay. So as long as we're within that realm, I'm okay. I care about what the percentage is of that he takes up the cap. You know, everybody makes fun of that acronym. It's a pie, or not the acronym, but the metaphor that it's a pie, right? It is a pie. And you don't look at it in terms of dollars. You look at it in terms of percentage, right? Pie charts are based on percentages. If you've ever fucking read one, sorry, but it is.
No, it's
So
okay.
last year at 21.6 of 255, T was at 8.5%. Okay. 8.5% of the anticipated 278 next year. 0.085 times 278
I don't know what was that.
is 23.6.
Okay, so
If it's somewhere around that number, which by the way is the franchise tag again, I'm okay. If that number starts to interfere with my offense and defensive line, I'm out.
what's the percent chance we could get both T and Jamar signed this offseason?
Oh, they'll both be here next year.
No, I mean, get them
I
both
know-
extended.
I would be floored if they do not get Jamar Chase signed. I think that's probably a 98%er. T being here, I think, is probably 90%. T being extended, I think, is closer to 50-50. So if we're going to go based on that math, 50% times 98%, so 0.5 times 0.98, you're at about a 49% chance they're both signed, in my opinion.
That's better than it once was when Malgetta was T's agent, right?
Yeah, when Mulligetta was T's agent, I would have given it about a 10% chance. And
That should seem very nice, right there.
T or Chase still 98, which puts you at a 10% chance of getting them both done. Now I'd say it's closer to 50. But if that means that me signing T means I can't extend Trey Hendrickson, even if it's just for one more year, because
Right.
Trey deserves an extension.
Absolutely.
Trey deserves. It's going to be weird because he has one more year on his contract, right?
Right.
So he's got like 1 year 20, 1 year 19, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
He deserves to be getting paid 25 to 30 a year
Mm-hmm.
based on his production. Okay. I saw, one of the accounts on X, I forget the name. It's J something, said, a 2-year, $60 million extension. That's not out of the realm of what he's worth by any stretch of the imagination, but it wouldn't be 2 more years on top of what he's got. It would most likely be this year with a pay increase and then next year, or 25 and 26. Now, you could really lessen his cap hit and go 2 years 60 and make it like the remaining would be 3 years 78. And I would be able to stomach that due to his production. I would need some protections in there because I do think at some point his body's going to break down. And being 29 years old, signing the guy through the age of 33 is a little scary.
Oh, yeah.
But that has to get done.
Yeah.
You owe him that money. He's worth it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, say if he was a free agent, look at the Patriots. They have $130 million salary cap. They're looking for a number one. The problem with T is, though, he is not guaranteed. He has not proven he can play 100% of his games. If you're the Patriots, wouldn't you be a little hesitant of giving him over $30 million a year?
Yes and no. It's one of those things where you have to take gambles as a front office.
Mm-hmm.
If you get burnt because the guy gets hurt, so be it. But if he doesn't get hurt and you passed up on it, you're going to look like an idiot.
Right.
You had a chance to do this and you didn't. What the hell's wrong with you?
Not a good visit to the owner, is it?
No, it's not. So you got to extend Trey, and I would say Trey is more important than T.
Yes.
A lot of people don't want to hear that. I want to keep everybody, but if I can't keep everybody and I have to start hemorrhaging players, it's not going to be in the trenches. It's going to be at skill positions. That's my personal opinion. If I can keep everybody, I want to. I want T to be here, but I don't want to hinder my ability to win in the trenches to keep T here.
Yeah. One player, because we see how this went with CJ Uzama. We saw how it went with Hayden Hurst. Mike Gesicki. You and I can both agree. Mike Gesicki proved himself. But Santori, it just takes one team. I mean, say if Travis Kelce retires, I could see the Chiefs giving Gesicki an offer. I could see some team overpaying the hell out of Gesicki. Am I wrong?
There's always going to be somebody willing to overpay. It's going to be what Gesicki wants to do. You got the other thing, and this starts to fall into the Mike Tomlin territory.
Mm-hmm.
The Bengals haven't had a losing season in half a decade.
Oh, wow.
We've had 4 straight winning seasons, and you still have Joe, Jamar, and T most likely on the team next year.
Yes.
I can't imagine the defense getting much worse than it was, and I can't imagine the offensive line playing any worse than it did down the stretch.
Right.
Assuming Joe and Jamar make it through the year, 9 wins is a fair assumption. They're probably not going anywhere anytime soon.
No.
All's fair in love and war. Things happen.
Oh, yeah.
If they ended up 4-13 next year because people got hurt, it happens. But the Bengals have established themselves as a team that expects to have a winning record.
Mm-hmm.
They've done it for 4 straight years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even without Joe Burrow, 2 years ago, they had a winning record.
Right.
The team wins. So what's important? You're going to get paid a decent amount of money here. You're going to play with Joe Burrow, and you're probably going to win a lot of games.
Right.
Or you can get paid more money and lose.
Yeah, and Gesicki.
We've seen guys, Hayden Hurst, Von Bell, Jesse Bates,
CJ
take more
Uzama.
money and lose. CJ Uzama, Carl Lawson. It happens. Guys do that. And I think with the exception of Jesse Bates, it bit every single one of those guys. Uzama didn't work out. Carl Lawson's didn't work out. Hayden Hurst didn't work out. Von Bell came back after it didn't work out. There is a tale to be told about leaving for money. It doesn't work.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, and remember when he was at the Dolphins. Remember there was that rumored tight end that wanted to play with Joe Burrow. We found out it was Gesicki the entire time that wanted to play. I mean, he says he wants to stay here, but you know how this is Santori with either the rest of the Bengals. Just because you want to stay doesn't mean it's guaranteed. But I hope he does look at those players you just mentioned as, hey, I have the best quarterback in the league right now. Why would I want to go anywhere else? I mean, now if the Chiefs off, or like say if, I don't know, the Patriots offer him to come back for like 2 years, $20 million. I mean, he'd be a fool not to accept that, right?
Sure. I mean, at some point, you know, the dollar amount's big enough to say yes. I mean, I work in sales. If I'm struggling to move something that I need sold, the last question I ask as a last ditch effort is, okay, what's the number that you'll say yes to?
Right.
And it's everybody has a number, right? Even if it's for losing, everybody has a number. So it just depends where Gesicki's at. But we'll pivot because we need to keep this train moving here. Offensive line coach. Now, I sent you a name I wanted you to look up, and we'll get to that here in a second. But I'll tell you how I got to these names. I went through Pro Football Focus, which some people like it, some people hate it. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it is a good tool to look at. I looked at over the last year, just the last year. I could have run this 3 or 4 years back, but I looked at it for the last year. Every team that graded in the top 10 for pass blocking grade, run blocking grade, and their run game grade. There were only 2 teams in the NFL that graded in the top 10 for both of them. Okay? One of them was Atlanta, believe it or not. So I decided to look to see what Atlanta's got cooking. Atlanta, of all the teams I looked at, and I ended up looking at about 15 teams, had 3 assistant offensive line coaches. By far, most teams didn't have an assistant offensive line coach. Some teams had the assistant offensive line coach, run game coordinator. Atlanta had a main head offensive line coach, and then they had 3 assistant offensive line coaches. All 3 of them had a really good pedigree and a really good resume. One in particular that I really liked, stood out to me, was I think his name was Legford. I sent it to you.
Yeah, right? It is. His name was, give me 1 second here. Oh, crap. Dwayne Ledford.
Yes, Ledford. If Ledford is available and you're looking to go someone that's going to be on the more affordable end because he's an assistant offensive line coach right now, I would recommend him. And I looked at probably 50 assistant offensive line coaches today, and he by far of the assistants who has never done it, but he is an assistant, had the most impressive resume. And Greg, I know you have some data on him.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the data. I mean, 2023, top 10 rushing offense, 127 yards per game. Atlanta O-line surrendered 40 sacks on 599 drop. All right, so what's the percentage on that? 40 sacks on 599 dropbacks. Dropbox, it says.
It's like 6.5%.
Which is pretty damn good, right?
It's solid.
Yeah, in Louisville, in that 2000, and he was the OC at Louisville, averaged 29.5 points per game. And I forget what he did at NC State. Everywhere he's been, you tell me if it's a coincidence he's done well everywhere he's been.
No, there's a track record. And the guys that he has helped develop, you know, Lindstrom's one, McGarry's one, Matthews is one. He's also the run game coordinator with Bijan. And before he had Bijan, you know, he had the Algier kid. And
I just called him Alligator.
Yeah, Alligator. Everywhere he's been, they've been able to run the ball, which is something the Bengals have gotten better at, but
Mhm.
could really, really be able to use to run on. Everywhere he's been, the sack numbers have been admirable. And everywhere he's been, the offensive line has been solid. And they're one of the 2 teams in the NFL that ranked top 10 in everything for their offensive line this past year.
Now it says he's the official offensive line coach. So I was telling you about this. I just can't see how Atlanta would just let him walk. Is he the official offensive line coach? You said they have like 3 or 4 assistants, but is he the official offensive? He's the run game coordinator, but is he the official offensive line coach?
He's the assistant.
Okay, it says here. Okay, if he's the assistant, oh my gosh, man, I'm running over there right now, grabbing him.
Yeah, so I'd be going after him right now.
And I kind of play devil's advocate with you a little bit because some fans are going to would be like, well, wait a minute, we're trying to develop a passing game, but like you pointed out, Pitcher and Taylor can handle that. We need this guy to teach them, like you said, this guy needs to develop. His job will be to develop the running game also too, right?
Yeah. Well, now you've got me questioning it because the website says O-line coach, but I know I looked at assistant coaches. So I want to go a little deeper here. But,
Okay.
I mean, he would be someone I would consider. They had 2 other guys that I would consider. And, God, who is the other one? The kid for the Eagles in terms of assistants. Paganetti, I think is how you say it. I'm not sure. Going down the rabbit hole of offensive line coaches is tough. So, I mean, it's especially assistant offensive line coaches.
What about Detroit? Do they have any good assistants that caught your attention? I mean, look at their offense.
Ledford is the offensive line coach. The other guy I wanted to look at, and I'm getting them flipped, right,
Okay.
is Flaherty. Flaherty is the assistant offensive line coach, and he has had a really good run as well.
Okay.
He's also developed a lot of guys. He's had a good track record too. So you're probably not going to get Ledford. I got the names flipped.
I was going to say Ledford. That's what I was confused with.
John Flaherty is the one that I'm looking at. I liked him. Let's see here. And I want to get the other 2 names out here as well, just in case they decide to snag one of them. It'd be nice to have. Nick Jones, Flaherty, Ledford, and then there was a third guy, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But either way, or maybe those are the 3, and there's 2 assistants. Regardless, they've got a really, really good run game program there. They have 2 assistant coaches, and both of the assistants, the other is Nick Jones, has had a good career as well.
Any connections with Zach, does it look like? Or
connections with Zach.
Well,
That's what people look for, but
yeah,
none of
well,
them-
well, what if it's the guy that Cleveland, because he interviewed for the Bengals OC job last year in case Pitcher left, and I know and he was the Cleveland offensive line coach last year, and so that's who I fear they're going to hire.
No, I fear that's the move they're going to make too. Andy Dickerson. I do not want Andy Dickerson.
Me neither.
The other guy that we were talking about is Paganetti. I think is how you say it. Paganetti. I don't know. The Phillies assistant offensive line coach. He's been there for some really, really good offenses and some really good offensive lines.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, they have definitely supplemented Philly with talent on that line, but it's something that you want to consider.
Yeah.
I
mean, you have to have talent everywhere. I mean, talent helps out a lot.
Well, you have to have players. There's X's and O's and Jimmys and Joes, and you need both.
Yeah.
You've just got one or the other, you're going to struggle.
There's only 2 guys I've seen that can do it, developing players. One was that guy for the Patriots.
Dante.
Yeah, and the other one is Callahan.
Yeah. There's some coaches that are Hall of Fame legendary coaches that can figure it out.
Yeah.
If not, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, big time.
Unless you have an all-timer,
Well, no, I have to throw this name out, Willie Anderson. Do you think he'd have any interest?
I think he'd be very interested. I've never talked to Willie. I've never met Willie. But I know that he has his offensive line academy, school, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
He is a coach. It's in his blood. He still loves the Bengals. I think he would love to to do it. I don't know if you'd want to be an NFL offensive coach or not. I'm not sure. But I know he loves coaching, and I know he loves the Bengals. You would think that those two would come together. And Willie's done an excellent job in his post-playing career as a coach. He does all the stuff for the young kids coming up, and he does a great job. So I would think he might be interested.
Yeah,
but I can't speak for Willie.
So you'd be okay. You'd be excited. Would you be excited or?
There's a part of me that would hesitate because I can't stand when an organization who has a track record of being cheap goes after former employees. It looks lazy.
It does.
Willie would be an exception because of how knowledgeable he is and how great his career was. It's different when you've got somebody who is on the Hall of Fame ballot every single year. It's not like they would go out and be like, oh, I don't know, Eric Guychek's going to be your offensive line coach now.
Oh man,
this is the guy qualified. I don't know.
Who was
qualified?
Who was this other teammate we drafted that year also from Central Michigan? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Okay, I remember Eric Guychek.
Yeah. Willie, I would be interested in. Jesus Christ. Matt, I told you guys last week I dyed my hair.
I was going to say, it looks good, man.
Collaborate and listen. Yeah, Vanilla Ice. I get it. But yeah, I would be cautiously optimistic with Willie, but it would be more optimism than cautious, if that makes sense.
No, I get what you're saying. Because Willie's an exception, but the point you're making is you're tired of having someone who has connections with the Bengals that's not going to. I totally get what you're saying. Hey, let's bring Jim Turner back. Why don't we?
Hell no. Oh my God. No.
No. If it came down to Jim Turner, Paul Alexander, if you had to choose between those two, who would it be?
Between Turner and Alexander?
I'd go Alexander.
I guess Alexander because he did it for 20 years and had some good lines. Jim Turner was just awful. But I really don't want Paul Alexander back either. And it's not
me neither.
It's not a knock on Paul. I used to be his bank teller. He used to come in and to PNC Bank when I worked there.
No, he was like the top offensive.
I don't like bringing guys back when they're time.
He was like the top offensive line coach. Remember, he went to Dallas. He didn't even last in Dallas for a half a season.
Right.
But I still have great memories of him, how he developed players.
Well, he was a great guy, and this isn't a knock on Paul, but one of the few times I actually get to talk to him for more than a minute about football because he came into the bank. Oh God, he came into PNC Bank like I had just started working there. Right. We had drafted Obuehi when I was still at Marshall in that April or May, whatever it was, right? Mm-hmm. That July, I was working at PNC Bank. And he had come in, and I just said, all right, I got to ask, what's with the Obuehi kid? How do we feel? He lit up like a Christmas tree. He was so excited.
He always did with it.
The talent was never a question. There was just other things going on with Obuehi, but the one time I actually ever got to really talk to him about Cedric, he was super, super excited. Like he was fired up that we got.
He just didn't like football. I think Lapp always kind of pointed out. He just didn't care about football. Was that it?
Well, he didn't care. Jackson Carman didn't care. Unfortunately, we keep picking guys that don't care.
Well, no, Jake Fisher did care, but he had heart issues, right?
He had heart problems, and he was the best tight end we ever had.
Yeah, that is true right there. That is true. But no. Like I say, I still have great memories of Paul. I want to go back to the defensive line. We talked about this on Bruce. So he was an assistant with Mike Zimmer. What would you say to Pecco being the Bengals D-line coach? Would you put that in consideration?
Same thing that I said with Willie.
Okay. Great leader he was.
I loved him as a leader. I loved him as a player. And I don't know enough about Dallas's defense and how their D-line performed with and without Pecco there.
Yeah, he was an assistant. He wasn't their D line coach. He was just like like one of those voluntary assistants. Yeah.
Again, it falls in that category of bringing guys back, and it
Right.
a
Well,
lot
it depends on what. Yeah.
a lot of times that works. A lot of times it doesn't. It'd be a coin flip for me. I don't know.
Well, it depends on who the new DC wants, because I think we can. Can you agree with this? They're not going to hire the defensive assistants right now until we find out.
No, they're not going to hire anybody until a coordinator's locked in, and they're probably not going to get a coordinator until at least the college football playoff is over.
Okay, so you're gonna, if you had to guess, sometime at the very earliest, sometime next week.
The very earliest. What is today? The 14th. Let me pull up a
Yes.
calendar.
Yeah, it's the 14th.
The absolute earliest, my guess would be like February 2nd or 3rd.
Really?
Yeah, I could see it being another couple weeks. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they sign one tomorrow. But
Yeah, because you got to remember for the Bengals, and someone who interviews, be like, well, wait a minute, the other place I was at, we had a bunch of scouts that did all this. Because
here,
remember,
I'll change it. January 28th. 2 weeks.
that's my mom's birthday, so I'll remember that.
I would say 2 weeks from today would be the earliest, because that gets you 2 days after the championship Sunday.
Yeah, because, well, you have to remember also, they kind of want to get a guy in here because, and we've, a lot of defensive coaches have said, the thing with Cincinnati is it's very hands-on. They make you do a lot of other stuff that mainly they have scouts do, but I think we only have 2 or 3 scouts. So the coaches are heavily involved in the scouting. They got a lot of more plate, right?
They are. And that's why you want to get one sooner rather than later, because
Right.
the draft is at the end of April and you want to give them at least 2 months to get through all the shit that they got to get through. And another reason why I say that is if the rumblings that they're waiting on Golden, like Matt's saying,
Mm-hmm.
well, I mean, you got at least another week before that's going to happen.
Okay, so Lou made $1.5 million. Golden is like one of the top pay. I think he's making $2.5 million right now in Notre Dame.
Mhm.
I don't see he'd only come back to the Bengals saying, look, you got to pay me at least more than what I'm making in Notre Dame, right?
Possibly. I mean, that's a fair assumption, but we don't know what's going on in Al Golden's head.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's and he remember when he came here, he did a great job with Logan Wilson. When he was at Miami, people need to remember that time when he was at Miami, Florida. That's when that whole scandal came through when they were paying a bunch of players at the time. Of course, it's legal now to do all that, but I thought Al Golden did a great job here as linebackers coach.
Yeah, I really liked Al. He went to a Super Bowl here. He was one of the guys that I thought was going to stick around in case Lou got fired, because I thought it would be natural progression for him to get a defensive coordinator job.
Mhm.
Like Matt says, he did wonders with Pratt. He really did. And it would be nice to see him work with Pratt and Wilson again, and possibly get John Meta going a little bit, because I think there's something there a little bit. But the money thing would definitely be an issue. What are the Bengals willing to pay a defensive coordinator at the NFL level? Now, here's the other thing. College coaches almost always make more than any. Head coaches, maybe not coordinators as much. I mean, you got head coaches in college on average making $5, $6, $7 million a year.
Wow.
They make a ton of money. Who's UC's head coach right now? I don't even know.
Satterfield.
Satterfield? What's he making?
Oh, I couldn't tell. I was not for it. I mean, I hope he's not watching this.
Satterfield, salary, UC.
It's got to be less than $1 million.
Who do you think makes more, him or Zach?
Zach by far.
Zach makes about $700,000 more.
That's it?
Yeah, it's like 3.7 to 4.5. It's not much.
But then why would these guys want to go to the NFL and coach if they can make more money in college?
Because it's the NFL. Some guys care about the league, not the money. Some guy. Here's the other thing. The coaching style is very different in college. In college, you can kind of be the authoritarian, my way or the highway
Right.
coach. That doesn't work in the NFL. That's why you see a lot of college coaches come up to the NFL and it just falls apart on them. And then they go back to college, namely Chip Kelly, and they're fine.
Yeah,
Give
Chip
me another-
Kelly.
Give me another college coach in the NFL.
Another college. You don't see it happen too often. I
Just
mean,
give me a college team in general, and we'll see. Because I don't know who these college coaches are.
okay, so just name me a random. Marcus Freeman. With
No,
Notre Dame.
name me a team, not a coach.
Oh, a team. Any college team? Okay. Texas A&M.
All right. I have no idea who their coach is.
Me neither.
Mike Elko. Okay, I've never heard of him
Me neither.
in my life. Let's see what Mike Elko makes. $7 million a year. Never heard of him.
$7 million a year.
Yes.
Well,
That's-
Texas A&M is a very high college football school, but still,
He's making
Good.
almost twice as much as Zach Taylor.
I don't even know who the hell he is, and he's making.
Give me one more. We'll prove it. With
Okay,
one.
I'll really put you to the test here. Vanderbilt, crappy SEC school.
All right. Vanderbilt's coach is Clark Leah.
Okay. Okay.
Is that right? Clark Leah?
I don't. You would know better than I would.
Okay. Clark Leah salary.
How
Clark's
much?
making 3.2.
That's still a crap load more.
Which
than
is tick under Zach, and he is in one of the worst college football schools in the country.
I was going to say Vanderbilt. I know they're in the SEC, but that's like the crap they haven't done. Well, I know they beat Alabama this year.
What's Ryan Day making?
Ryan Day, he's got to be making over $10 million.
10.2.
Oh wow. Okay. What about the Oregon guy?
Oregon?
Manning. What's his name?
Dan Lanning. Survey says 8.5.
Okay, well, he's going to be making more than that probably eventually. He's still young and up and coming. I'm trying to think about. I wonder how much Saban was making in Alabama before. He
I don't
left.
want to know. But point being, coaches have the opportunity to make far more money in college, so I mean, Zach Taylor could probably drop down to, I don't know. Let's see what Tuberville made at UC because
Oh,
he's on that
God.
thing.
Oh God.
Tommy Tuberville made $2.2 million that year.
You're
Granted.
kidding me.
Granted, that's 10 years ago. But
Okay,
yeah.
10 years ago, 10 years ago that would it be equivalent like to what, $4 million now?
Let's see. Well, I mean, Satterfield's making about 4 now, so yeah.
Oh my God!
Okay, so it's the same money.
You mean to tell me Satterfield, who
Are
hasn't
doing
done,
the same thing.
you mean to tell me Satterfield, who hasn't done crap? Well, I heard he did okay this year. I haven't been following UC much. Hasn't done crap. Is making a crap load of more than Zach Taylor.
He's making the same money as Zach Taylor. Satterfield.
Same money. Oh my God.
Point being, don't think about money when guys leave college football.
Okay.
Because many of them that leave are leaving the money.
All right. But Al Golden, well, so I mean, so say if you're the Bengals, you're selling. I mean, why would you not want to come here if you're DC? You're like, wow, I got the best offense in the league. I'm not going to be any pressured or anything. All I need to do is put somewhat of a mediocre defense out in this field.
All you got to do is hold teams under 30. You get a
Well,
chance.
I watched a little bit of the show with you and Dale last week. You made the argument with the Raiders guy. Look at the quarterback he had. Their defense was on the field 90% of the time. When your
Sure.
defense is on the field that much, you're going to get burned out.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If you've got a great quarterback, your defense, even if they're not great, are going to look better than what they are.
Right.
Right? Especially if you've got the lead and you can make somebody one-dimensional. If they can just get a couple stops, they'll look fine. It's when you have a bad quarterback, if you're a good coordinator, you're on the field the whole time, you're going to look like you're getting blown out.
Right.
It's
No,
not
I agree with you.
Like the one of the numbers that I look at, everybody looks at yards per game, points per game. I look at yards per play. How many yards are you giving up every time they snap the ball? That's what I care about.
Right.
How many big plays are you giving up? What's your average starting field position? What's the win rate for your pass rush? There's so many different things, and there's so many numbers, and numbers can be skewed one way or the other. What's the film say? Are these guys flying around? Are you having exotic blitz patches? Are you disguising things? Or, are you giving up just chunks all the time? And, maybe you get that lucky pick, and, there will be times that people go, oh, my God, the defense stood up that time. I'm like, did the defense stand up? Or did the Raiders snap the ball and the quarterback wasn't looking and the Chiefs fell on it and they escaped the clutches of defeat? Because at the end of the day, when you go back, if you didn't watch that game and you check the stat sheet, it just says the Chiefs recovered a fumble to win the game.
That's true. You're right and all that. I told you, but see, the thing is, when you play a team like the Ravens, man, it's a whole different because Lamar, man, it's hard. I'll say this. It's hard to guard Lamar. It is hard.
Sure.
I mean, Lamar creates his own plays. That's a whole different. I don't know how you stop the Ravens at times. Well, you can stop them in the playoffs, but in the regular season, man, with Lamar, it's a whole different system when you play Lamar.
It's a problem. They finally got some receivers that can get open downfield, and that's been the hindrance, is they had no weapons downfield. Lamar's never really been the problem. Everybody will be like, oh, he played bad in the playoffs. Well, when you're one-dimensional in the playoffs,
right,
and, you can be one-dimensional in the regular season, but when you're in the playoffs and you're playing the best of the best every single week, you're going to run into problems. And now that he's got actual threats downfield and you just can't put 8 in the box and say, so be it, they're a problem. And we said that when they signed Derrick Henry of, this is going to be a really, really big problem.
Yeah, well, no, I thought Derrick Henry. I'm like, oh man, he's played so long. Derrick Henry proved us all wrong. Oh my Lord,
he's an anomaly. He's an exception to the rule. He really is.
Oh my Lord, man. But hey, since we're still talking here, I want to talk about one thing about the Bengals defense. And everybody's telling their own opinion. A lot of people look, Newton, Ivy, I think they're great up and coming corners. CTB played well near the end of the year. Dax Hill got hurt. And believe me, the trenches are our first priority, 100%. But Santori, I still think we need to look into adding a corner. I mean, you look at Derek Stingley. Look at Derek Stingley, man. I mean, that dude was a shutdown corner for the Texans. He didn't let anything get to anybody. I know that's not easy to find, but if you mean to tell me like an Alexander for the Packers is going to be out there, I'd make a phone call to him in a heartbeat.
They need to get a veteran.
Yes.
I think Dax is going to end up being a good corner. I would keep him on the team for a while, quite frankly. I think they found the right spot, and it's a shame he tore his ACL because he's going to have to fight through that recovery next year. But what's going to end up happening is he's probably going to be okay this coming season. If he continues to develop the way that he can, he'll get a 1-year prove-it deal. If he falls apart, they'll end up cutting him, and they'll just blame it on injury, and you'll never hear from him again. Turner's going to be the real deal. Cam's going to be fine. I love Cam. I
love Cam too.
Hilton's going to be gone. They're not going to bring back Mike Hilton.
I would take him back in blitz packages, but in covering,
yeah, I don't want to eat up that roster spot for a blitz package guy. So you're going to have a veteran. I got 2 guys I can trust. I've got, I like Ivy and
Newton.
Newton.
And you were not, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were not high on Newton in the draft, were you?
I'm still not super high on him. He's an okay depth piece.
Okay.
And he's done well in his role. Ivy's got a role carved out for him, which God knows what that role is going to be moving forward with a new coordinator. Those two are good depth pieces. You've got 2 starters and 2 depth pieces. Okay.
Which is not bad.
You need another starter because Dax Hill is in limbo. Right. I would assume Dax is probably going to start the year on the PUP list.
Right.
So you need to go get another one. So I would really like a veteran. It's going to be somebody that could probably play on the outside because I would assume Turner's going to move to that slot role.
Oh, and he'd do a damn good job at it.
He would. Because the thing with slots is you got to prevent against jet sweeps. You got to prevent against crossers, double moves, switch releases, high-low routes, corner concepts, and he's got the speed to be able to make up for those things. And that's what
he's not afraid to hit anybody.
No. My fear with him, and this was the fear coming out, is durability. And I know that sounds weird after the 1 year.
Right.
But the injury he had is so problematic because it's so easy to re-break a clavicle. Those are not things that heal properly very well. Medical science is advancing, but it's always something that typically breaks and re-breaks.
Right.
It's something that every time he comes down on his shoulder, which corners do that a lot,
right?
I'm going to worry about. It's kind of like an Achilles. Once it goes once, it's going to go again.
Well, yeah, and so I was pounding the table for Stephon Gilmore. I wanted him so badly, and I think he did a great job. I'm assuming he did a good job for the Vikings this year.
They should probably go a route like that.
Yes.
One of those veterans who's maybe he's 32, probably a year or 2 left, isn't going to charge you too much.
Right.
Kind of like the Steelers did with Patrick Peterson a few years ago. He's just a veteran. He's going to be able to cover the deep ball outside.
Right.
You know, the other thing is I don't know what kind of defense they're going to run. But the good thing is with those kind of guys is they're typically there toward the back end of free agency. You don't have to worry about them in the draft. Sometimes they're even there after the draft. Those guys tend to linger. So that would be a low on my priority list in terms of urgency, but it's a have to have.
Well, and also, I got into a fight with not a fight, just a debate with a friend of mine over this. He's like, well, what about Newton? You'd have to get rid of Newton or somebody if you get Gilmore. You're in a win now mode. You're not in developing. You want to develop, but Santori, when you're in a win now mode, you want to get the best of the best right there because you're trying to win now, right?
I don't know who you would have to get rid of. I mean, you'd have Turner,
right?
You'd have Cam. Okay, Dax is not going to take up a roster spot right away. He's recovering from an ACL. Okay. You've got Newton. You've got Ivy.
Right.
You carry 6.
Well, this was before the season started. When Dax was healthy, yeah.
Oh, when Dax was healthy before the year started, sure, but you probably could have put a guy like Newton on, I don't know, the practice squad, or they could have pupped him or something.
I think somebody would have.
There's roster gymnastics that you could have kept him.
Okay. Yeah, and like I say, I'm all for developing. Newton did a great job this year. I'm just saying, man, when you're in a win now mode, you got to go out and get these veterans.
Sure, yeah, I agree, and they probably do need to do that, at least for a stopgap until Dax is ready.
Exactly, like a Band-Aid, right?
I mean, people forget that Dax was playing well and grading well, and it's hard to grade well on Pro Football Focus as a corner. But he was playing well and grading well until he got hurt, and he was getting better every single week.
Yeah, well, but Santori, I mean, I wasn't up for it. I'm like, great, this is the third position Dax is playing, and this is the hardest one of them all, and he did a damn good job over it. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
It's the hardest position because it takes a special athlete. Dax Hill is a damn good athlete.
Yeah, he is.
Corner is a combination of 2 things. It's athletics and mentality. You have to want to do it, and you have to be gifted enough to do it. And if you're not gifted enough to do it, then you better damn well want to do it because it's one of the hardest jobs in all of sports. I would say, in terms of the NFL, it's the second hardest position to play in the NFL.
Right.
I would say quarterback is the hardest, corner is the second.
Oh, I agree with you on that.
You're not allowed to touch people. You're just not.
And you have to guess where this guy's running. You don't know where he's going to
It
shift.
requires incredible film study, incredible athletics, and remarkable intuition. You have to be a complete package to be a good corner. You just have to. There's no other way around that. But I am going to cut this off here. It's about 10.
No, that's fine.
Ashley's wanting to get dinner. We went a half an hour longer than I anticipated.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Say no. I lot to cover here. No, I'm sorry.
No problem. But we'll be back on again Thursday or Friday. And Greg, thanks for jumping on. And we'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Will do, buddy.
Peace out, Girl Scouts.